This broadcast is inappropriate for all ages, right here on... This broadcast is inappropriate for all ages, right here on... Hashtag WeAreMovieClub. I am Cameron. Here today to talk about Eva. Real quick, no long-windedness about it. Eva is a movie that I have to apologize for starters, because I didn't realize it was in Spanish and that it was going to be subtitled. So, joke's on me. Sorry everyone else. Hopefully you still enjoyed it if you watched it. Just briefly, the whole idea is that a guy has to build a robot, and he wants it's supposed to be a child robot, and he wants to base it off his niece, and this is a movie about that. In theory, the reality is that it's not a movie about that at all, but it's got so many like little twists in it that it's really awkward to talk about without getting into it, because a lot of things are not as they seem, and it's very, very odd. Let's just jump into the scene by scene and get on with this train wreck. Just let me say, for context purposes, it's a good movie. It's just, it was a really awkward watch because it was very thorny at points. And it was just like, that's... Excuse me. That's a really odd way to do that, and it's just interesting to see how they went about doing a lot of things. But of course we open up in the snow because why not? There's like a locket. There's some woman hanging off a cliff. It fades to black. She screams, and I think we're supposed to immediately infer that someone dies. So we're starting off on a pretty happy note, right? I'm just saying. But it becomes very clear that this is an in media res like approach to the movie. It's like that's obviously the middle or end of the story, and we're gonna go back to the beginning now that we have the context of where we're leading to. Now, I apologize. There is one more scene before we jump to the beginning of the movie. So there's a girl in the red jacket, or in a red jacket, that seems lost in the woods. She finds a cabin. A man comes to the door and says, "Ava, where's your mother?" And then she faints. So immediately we see that's the title character. There are several things that you can kind of assume is going on there, but I think you can piece together that her mom fell off the cliff, and she went and found someone who knows her mom, and was expecting her mom, and then she faints from stress. That's what you should be able to perceive based off that. Let's see here. So, with that happening, we go to this strange crystal scene that has no context, and almost acts like a pure liquid. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen them blow glass, but glass is, I think, technically a liquid, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. Or maybe more of a biologic is a better approach to thinking about those things, especially given the context of what they actually are later on. Okay, I'm going to fast forward through a couple things here because there is a lot of drawn out exposition that isn't necessarily not important, but it's a little troublesome to just skip through. So I'll do the highlights here in a second. So basically, Alex flies in on a plane. He has a robot cat. There's, I think, another gentleman his brother, David, who comes and picks him up. They have some discussion about how David was a genius, but he quit trying to invent robots to try to teach because he enjoyed it more, essentially, where Alex is obviously a robot engineer. of some kind. We don't. We're not. You're not really sure until later, and apparently he does everything, which is very good to be that well rounded, I guess. Um, so they go, and he takes her to school. He talks with the, or he goes to talk to somebody. Julia, I think, is her name, and he's mistimed or something. And the receptionist is a very lifelike robot from the waist up. So we're seeing like a range of what they're working on because that's the first photorealistic human that we've seen as a robot, um, which you can then infer that they have fully humanoid type robots that would mimic or even look like humans. And based on the premise of the movie, we know that they have child ones or they're working on child ones. And through some of the discussion, they have a point of making out that some of the robots are silly, like they've got personality, they're goofy, they're funny looking, they're not serious humanoid type robots. Um, let's see. Yeah, what was really interesting seeing like a lot of the big dogs and stuff out in the snow. There's one like big spider robot that I was actually really impressed with. Um, so Alex barges in is on the classroom. There's a wild horse robot that's out of control, and the student ends up out of mercy or just trying to get control of the robot. Ends up giving like a kill command essentially. And it's like, what do you see when your eyes closed? And the horse falls over. So we're given that exposition of, hey, there is ways to a universal way to kill these robots off. And it's just very weird premise to install that early in the movie. There's lots of oddly placed foreshadowing. And I want to say that it makes sense once you get to the end of the movie, and you can draw the lines, but it doesn't make sense where the lines are. Okay, so then we finally address that like they're working on a new child robot, the SI9, I think is what they call it, and they need proper emotional control software. Uh, and like so, apparently that's what Alex's specialty is emotional control, and he does lots of psychology stuff to deal with it. Um, but he's staring at some lecturer, and she ends up turning out to be his old lover, who's now his brother's lover, or wife, or something. I don't know. They get to his parents' place. He sets up shop there instead of working at the school, and there's a hand scan entry code, which comes up a couple times in the movie that like things close off, and there's only one real scene where it matters. But it was deep technology to see them try to implement. Um, so like he's got boarded up skylight, all this like, and it's a skylight that you can walk to. So apparently this cabin is lodged into the side of a mountain because you can easily walk to the top to the skylight and look down in the workshop, which is really secure for when you're working on top secret stuff. I'm just saying. It's nice to have that access for outsiders. There's a funny moment where like the robot cat actually passes by its own grave, um, which I don't know why they like. It's like just be prepared to be sad. That's what that scene is saying. Yeah, so an SI7 shows up to assist, and he's this freaking OCD overbearing asshole, really. But like he's there to help, so whatever. His name's Max. He's very quirky. Whatever. I don't really like Max. I like the cat more than I like Max, and Max and the cat do not get along, which is pretty funny. But we go back to school. We see the marshmallow test. We start establishing that like an ordinary kid is going to create an ordinary robot. We want an extraordinary robot, so we need an extraordinary kid. We find Lana Levy, who actually is the former lover, current brother's lover, and it turns out yeah, I'll go ahead and spoil it now, is Ava's mom. So obviously Ava is his niece. Um, but she's teaching Alex's theories in her classroom for whatever reason. They're flirting. She's very carefully neutral about it, so it establishes that they have a history, that there may be some emotional connection there. Obviously, Alex is infatuated, so it's going to be a problem later. And then Alex starts roaming the streets looking for the perfect kid. I'm not going to lie, this looks creepy as fuck. And not only does he find Ava, girl in the red jacket, but she calls him out on it. Becomes her special little nickname for him is Perverto or whatever it is. So she's super sassy about everything. She doesn't like get in his car or anything. But he gets out of the car and he offers her candy. Oh my god, just really. Like, but and then she says she doesn't like either one of those, and she takes like I think he offers for her to choose one because he's trying to test her. She's like, well, I don't really like either of those, so I'll take both. And he lets her because why not? It's just the fact that she calls him out on being a pervert is amazing, and he just rolls in stride with it because I guess he's used to that being the job he does. And I mean, she's definitely particular enough. She's the only one wearing red. Everyone else is wearing like black. It's I don't know. I don't know. Back at the cabin, like Max has cleaned everything, prepared lunch. He doesn't like Grizz, and then we see that another piece of how the robots work. Alex asks Max to adjust his emo level, like down to a 6 from an 8, because they're not used to robots that are so emotional. Which is just a fun thing to say that they're emotional robots. Let's see. So time to go to work. Let's see. So we find out those crystal formations are actually part of the programming modules that Alex works with when he's creating it. And he uses this weird hollow sensor computer interface to do the programming. And he takes one of a globule or whatever and puts it into one of the stupid robots, or the prototype robot that's just sitting there. And then it gets up and acts all amazed by everything. It's looking at the cigarette smoke, and then it's going to go down and touch the cigarette, and he's just waiting on it. Because we're supposed to, I guess it's supposed to be able to sense that it's hot enough to actually feel paint. I don't know. Like, I was really curious about that, but then the phone rings and it ruins everything. Like, we don't get to see if you can torture robots. Like, I really wish, of all the weird things in this universe, I wish they had addressed it, even if only slightly. So, yeah, and apparently I think that was an invitation to, oh yeah, the robot turtled, fell on his back and couldn't get up. So Alex deactivates the thing, and then the next scene is Alex going to his brother's house. There's some, like, back and forth there. I'm going to skip all that. But he ends up bringing flowers to Lena, and he finds out that Ava is his niece, that she's 10 years old. I think it's supposed to be from the time where, like, they could have had a child together. So, like, there's this now a floating question of if Ava is his daughter. So back at the cabin, Max and Grizz are getting along better, which is, I don't know, kind of odd, but kind of nice. I don't know. It's very inconsequential. Alex makes a point of noting that he's looking for a funny model for the SI-9 and not a more serious model like the SI-7 that Max is. Ava shows up, and I have no idea how she got there. Oh, at the time, no, it turns out that she rode her bike out there, but it was very unclear at the time. Max tries to quarantine her to a chair instead of letting her explore, like Alex is letting her do. Max is very orderly. She lets Grizz get up in her lap, even though Max is yelling at him. And then as she's, like, taunting Max because she's being a little bitch, let's just be honest, Like she just dumps him on the floor. It's horrible. They must have put the scream in post because just to lighten the scene up or something because it was pretty rough. Um, let's see. So he starts testing Ava, and then Ava gets bored because it's too simple. It's just and so he tries to complicate it with the discussion, and then she gets upset and tries to leave because like it didn't go her way. She tried to say something, and then he told her like, "Oh, you might not be right. Like, look at this, this, and this." And then because her world was invalidated, she tries to leave. And fuck you, anyone who relates to that, because we don't need to validate your world all the time. Just live it. But she comes back on her own. It's a very weird thing. Like she's watched too many movies. Like if like you don't come after me, I have to come back. And he had to let her out the door, which uh, is only noteworthy slightly. So we move on to like the prototype. He shows her the programming that he's using or using the testing for, and then we're watching Lena bathe Ava for whatever reason. Um, Lena chides her for riding her bike all the way out there. So that's how you find out that that's how she got out there. She wasn't supposed to be out there. Their parents didn't know she was out there. She lied to her parents. Uh, this is like very subtly important information that she can lie and all this because of what ends up later. It shows you the character of who she really is. But Ava promises not to do it again and crosses her fingers. And then Ava starts prying into how much Lena likes Alex because reasons. Um, Back at the office, Alex tries to pitch an idea of a girl over a boy to Julia, who says no. And then Lena confronts Alex, telling him not to use Ava for his tests. And she's obviously warming up to him again. Up on the mountain, Ava drags Alex up some mountain for whatever reason. And then she makes two significant points. She taunts him about defending his relationship with her mother, meaning that Ava's onto that they like each other, and she is very childlike innocence about like, well, why don't you just do things? And then she points out that she doesn't live with her father, that her father lives in a house halfway across town. So like Alex kind of gets hopeful. I think that's very much the intent there. Um, Back at the workshop, the prototype robot points out how much Ava looks like Alex. And I think that's the first point where we're very obviously inclined to believe that Ava is Alex and Lena's love child. So back at the house, I think Alex thinks this too at this point. So he's just kind of spying on Lena and Ava. And then Ava catches him, doesn't say anything. David catches him, does say some stuff. Ava calls out to David to distract him, I guess. I don't know. And then, like, while everyone's back is turned, like, for as creepy as it is, Ava's, like, pointing at Lena, like, don't you want to do her? Like, it's just kind of weird. Back to the workshop. So, he's doing the emotional test with the prototype robot again, testing the emotional control software. He's getting very similar reactions to what he saw with Ava. And it tries to leave but can't because he won't open the door for it. And it actually becomes so upset it's refusing orders. It doesn't like being teased. It actually throws like a scalping knife or sculpting knife at him, which is amazing because it does have a flat tip. And then Alex uses the kill command. So the fact that he could have just died via robot that he was working on is kind of interesting. Asimov does not live here. Shit. Asimov. Um, So at some party, Lena greets Alex. David becomes confrontational and he tries to establish his dominance by making Alex hold the drinks and dancing with the girl. And then Alex is about to leave, but then he cuts in and dances with Lena, establishing his dominance. If we're watching a nature show, David obviously notices dancing very intimately, so he is not happy. Let's just say. And outside, they're talking. Lena walks off, and then David slinks out of the shadows to punch Alex because why not? And then fight, 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 kiss, kiss, kiss. Um, Alex obviously is upset. Back at the workshop, Max gives him a hug. I missed a scene or two. I don't remember why, but I put dot 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 here, which is not a good sign. At the workshop, I guess Alex is leaving, I think is the whole thing. But Lena shows up to say goodbye, and they kiss, finally. And then for some reason, Ava goes to the sunroof. She's never done this before that we know of. And it's just kind of a weird thing to notice. But she's reading their lips because she can do that. Lana confesses to Alex that she's theirs. And then Ava runs off, and Lena goes to pursue Ava on her own. Alex sits down on the couch and waits. Because douchebaggery? I don't know. It was a very, very weird thing for him to do. Very different concept. An American movie, he never would have just sat there. He would have followed them out there, even if they give him a head start. So eventually, outside, Lena finds Ava's gloves. And then she pulls out some fucking Find a Kid device and starts tracking her. And eventually, Lena finds Ava fallen over, and her eyes look a little weird. I really couldn't tell if they were closed or if they went weird robot eyes. Because if they went weird robot eyes, then that's too much of a giveaway. It's too soon for it to be a dramatic reveal, because it actually invalidates the next part of the scene. If her eyes are just closed, it's a funny angle. Great, that works. Because she flips her over and then starts cutting away at her back, and she manages to remove a panel of skin. And there's like a maintenance hatch back there that she opens up. And that's what I'm saying. Like, the maintenance hatch should be the big thing. It's like the fact that she just starts cutting on her. It's like, is she a doctor? Maybe it's assumed that you just know at that point. I don't know. And then, like, there's 4 vials. I don't know why there's 4. And then she replaces one of them. Like, she just always has that in her pocket. Why did the one run out? I don't know. Maybe it was damaged and that's why. But so she replaces it, regardless of how common it is. And then Ava wakes up and she's wondering what's happening, and she can feel the blood from her back. I still don't know if she knows she's a robot or not until that moment. But there's a lot of unanswered questions. But they start arguing, and Ava's just pushing her away. And she's not being violent or anything, but she's pushing her away into snowy cliffside. So things happen. So eventually, Lena ends up falling down and sliding to the edge cliff. Cliff edge. She grabs on for a moment, like we saw at the beginning of the movie, and then we get to see her fall. And she at least hits her head. The following steps, I have no idea what happens in the background that we're just supposed to know what happens. But Ava makes it back to the cabin, like we saw, and to Alex. And assuming that when she wakes up, she lets him know that something happened. We obviously know that Lana is missing, so he must have called the authorities or whatever for a search team because somebody else found her and took her to the hospital. And by the time they get to the hospital, they get there just in time to watch her die together as a family. And I think David rolled in like right around the same time, or maybe just after. But he got to sit with the body and cry because I guess they're still technically married. Yeah. You would think that'd be the end of the movie. Um, but back at the cabin, Max expresses concern for Alex and Ava to Ava. Ava confesses to Max that she was the one that pushed her, which I guess technically makes her a murderer. Manslaughter is probably the better term. Manslaughterer? So Max picks her up, hugging her, and he tucks her into the couch and wraps a blanket around her and wakes up Alex. Alex goes over to her, and then, because this is what you do to young sleeping girls, starts undressing her enough to look at her back panel to confirm that she is indeed a robot. I think Max told him, is what it is. So outside, Julia shows up to talk with Alex. They discuss that, like, yes, she's exactly what they've been trying to build, except a girl version. And Julia tells them that, like, she needs to be destroyed because, I guess, because she killed someone. I don't know. I think wasn't really clear. But instead, Alex takes Max and Ava skating. And Max and Ava go out there and they skate together because Alex isn't very good at it, and Alex watches. And then David comes up and cries on his shoulder because he needs to. And then something happened because I got distracted. But eventually they're back at the cabin. And Alex takes Eva to the workshop, the room that's sealed that that Eva can't open. Max gets all weepy, and Grizz starts crying at the door. So it becomes very clear to all the characters what's happening. We're kind of like the March to the Elephant Graveyard, if you will. And Alex is being kind of creepy by slowly shutting down every machine in the room as a huge sign of foreshadowing that something should be happening in the next 30 seconds. I think the assumption is that he has the option to not do it. Maybe that's the romantic side, that like you could choose as the characters not to pursue this and go another route, but yeah, and then she leads them to the bed, which I don't know why we have all these little pieces that just but as depressing as this is, she proposes reading him from 1001 Arabian Nights, and I had explained this to my girl as well of what that is. So for those who don't know, the whole premise was that like a concubine was taken as the king or as the sultan's wife or one of his wives, and he was noted for killing his wives when he was tired of them, and he told her to tell him a story, and she made the deal with him as long as she had a fresh, new, exciting story for him, and he liked it, that he would not kill her like the others. And then she told him 1,001 stories, so that's roughly 3 years worth. And I think in some versions he lets her go. And in others, he ends up killing her, but like he never took another wife or something like that. Something weird and regrettable. But like the whole point is that she told stories to stave off him killing her. And so when she's presenting that, she's presenting the idea that they can strike some kind of accord that he won't kill her. Or it. He won't kill it, because that's what it is. And then She says, "Alex, you won't fix me, will you?" Which is like her last little ditch effort. And he draws her into his arms, and he tells her no, and he hugs her, and then he whispers into his ear, "Ava, what do you see when your eyes close?" Which is the kill command, and she kind of drops. And we go to like this very crystal-y type thing, and we see the movie scenes in the crystals, and as they start to disintegrate one by one, all the way to this funny little beach scene where it's Lena and Alex and Ava and I don't think no David, and two dogs on a beach in white clothes. And I think it's supposed to be a commentary on how that's the perfect family moment to a degree. Like, for whatever reason, people think that, so they use it in tampon commercials and such. But that's the point, is that she has the last thing that she has before her consciousness goes are these thoughts of having this real family that was so close that it's just sad. So the movie itself, like, is actually a really good movie. Having to read subtitles irks me, but the subtitles aside, it does not leave you feeling good. It is a sad fucking movie with some very interesting sci-fi elements to it. And honestly, I think it was well worth the watch, but I could not bring myself to recommend this outside of doing something like a movie club where like you risk things. I hadn't seen this movie before I recommended it. In future, when we get around to doing this again, I think it will be movies that I've seen. I think that'll be a prerequisite in future. Speaking of the future, I think this is going to pause for a while. We are not dead. We are but the sleeping giant. I think We Are Movie Club is going to go to sleep for a little while, at least until either I get on a better schedule or we get more people involved. So that's a bit more fun. I don't mind talking about movies. Doing the scene by scene is okay, but it's a lot harder without people to stop and discuss things. So if you would like to help revitalize We Are Movie Club and you're listening to this at We Are Movie Club on the Twitters, hit us up, let us know, and we can try to arrange something one way or the other. And I look forward to that day, but I think for right now we say good night. Thank you for watching, listening, and ingesting this however you do. I am Camerai, and this has been hashtag We Are Movie Club. If you want to see anything else we're up to, go to click the annotations, and they'll take you to your other channels. Thanks for watching.